Welcome back, gamers. So, a friend of mine requested me to do a impression video on the Final Fantasy 15 episode Duscae demo, which came packed with the Final Fantasy Type 0 HD game remake on the PS4 and Xbox One. I honestly didn't buy Type 0 HD for Type 0. I bought Final Fantasy Type 0 HD for the demo. And I know a lot of you guys out there, my friends included, I've asked around, I've asked people, hey, how is Type 0? And people were like, what? What Type 0? I haven't even played it yet. I was busy on the demo. And they're like, oh, I bought the game just for the demo. So I'm not ashamed to say it. I did buy the game just for the demo. So I just got to give it to Square Enix for that. Well played. Now, if you haven't seen it, I posted the clips of the first playthrough on the channel. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And I also want to apologize about the clips because I did two things wrong for not paying attention. Number one is I didn't know there was a run function in the game. If you press L3 down, you can actually run in the game. So the whole time I was actually walking. It took me till the cave level to figure out that you can run in the game. And the second biggest mistake I've made in the game for not paying attention was that the fact that blocking and parries was not a combination of button presses, or you don't press it once. You actually have to hold down a button to dodge or to parry. And, you know, the whole time I was trying to press it, and I was like, why is it working? So, next time, always gotta read and do the tutorials. So I learned it the hard way. Anyways, about the demo itself, the game starts off with a bunch of guys who are sleeping in the tent. You wake up to this very annoying alarm clock, and you walk out, and you see this beautiful open world in front of you. The graphics, the environment, everything about this game looks absolutely stunning. Like, you can see a highway on the side, and then right in front of you is like just this open area, and you can look around and tell that it's very Earth-like, but at the same time, it's not Earth because the geography is completely different. There's crystals in the distance, there's these large giant creatures that are in the lakes, and the rock formations are very interesting. So you can tell it's definitely a fantasy world. Pretty much the goal of the crew is to earn money and repair the car. Apparently the car broke down and they needed to earn money, and they saw the wanted poster for the King Behemoth Deadeye, and that's where your journey starts in this demo. Now, as you can see, the main character you'll be controlling in the game is Noctis, who is apparently a prince. All the other characters following him is Gladylus, Ignis, and Prompto. And out of all of them, I think Ignis is probably one of the best dressed ones, but every single one of them has some really emo style hair and pretty hip clothing. Very different. And it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some people might like it, some people might not. It's a matter of preference. I don't mind it too much. They do, to me, look like some type of boy band crew. There are about 6 enemies in this demo. Well, one of them is not really an enemy. Like up in the north, there's these mesmers, these creatures that are basically like skeletal unicorns running around. They don't really attack the player. You chase them, you kill them, and you can earn like these horns for them that you can sell. There's also these buffalo-like creatures all over the place that are neutral to the players and harmless until the players attack them. There's also a different size one and color. There is goblins that only come out at night or in caves. There are also Imperial Magitech Knights that falls from transport ship as they patrol the land. If you happen to run into them, they'll drop out. If not, they'll just continue flying off, which is really cool. And then you got the Sabre Tusk, which are all over the place. They look like dogs with huge tusks all over their body that basically attack in large group. And then, of course, the boss of the area is the King Behemoth Deadeye. The creatures in the lake, you can't really attack them, and you can't really swim in demo. I don't know if you can even swim in the full game, so we'll see. But the large creature seems like they're harmless, so they're just aesthetic, really. So the enemy AI in this game is really quite interesting. If you take a look at the game itself, the buffaloes like to attack in certain ways using their entire large bodies. You got the goblins, which likes to throw these magic poison at you. You got the Sabre Tusk, which runs around the player, and the player has to chase after them just to get some hits on them. And of course, the King Behemoth has his own types of attack also. He can also climb a cliff up and down just to chase after the player. So the AI in this game is quite unique to each of the mobs. Hopefully in the real version we can see a lot more of that, because that's what makes the game really interesting, is not to fight like, you know, boring ass enemies that does the same thing over and over again. You want to fight things that react differently or does different strategies against you. And that's what makes it interesting in this game. So I'm looking forward more to that. Now, before I talk about the gameplay and the combat style of the game, I want to talk about the graphics of the game and the minor details, such as the special effects and the animations in the game that people tend to not notice when they're playing the demo. So, one of the things you'll see in the demo is that when Noctis is running around through bushes, he'll push them aside with his hands. When you're running away from enemies or you're running towards enemy and you decide to go the opposite way, all of a sudden you'll do a little bit of stumble. You'll notice enemy animations, they're stumbling animations, and each enemies, depending on who you fight against, like for example the Magitech Knights, if you fight against them, you'll notice pieces of their armors dropping down. That adds a lot of immersion to the game, and it's really cool to see enemies stumble about. So the animation in this game is really well done. In fact, one of my favorite animations in the game is, believe it or not, the goblins. The way they move is damn creepy. The way they skulk and then they move towards the player and they run around and run back. Like, it just feels so creepy and lifelike for some odd reason. I don't know, it just matches them perfectly. So, well done in the animations for some of the enemies. It's really interesting. Not only that, but they do remind me of Heartless from Kingdom Hearts. If you look carefully, even the way they spawn in is like a Heartless. They come from these little shadows in the ground. So, they are kind of my favorite enemies because they bring back a lot of nostalgia. The other thing I want to compliment about the game that I've seen is the special effects in the game. The special effects in the game is outrageous. When Noctis is swinging his swords, you'll see sparks flying around, and since his attack is about summoning swords, you'll see the weapon change in his hand, and you'll see the special blue effects as they warp in, which is really cool. And the other special effects that I like in the game is the fact that when you summon Ramu, that is damn cool, because the summoning in this game, if Ramu looks that cool, I can't wait to see the other summons in the game, because what happens is, you know, the skies starts darkening, you'll see lightning, and then all of a sudden he appears and throws Judgment Bolt down. It scorches the entire world, and it's just ridiculously OP, but unfortunately you don't get a lot of XP or items from it, so it's kind of like one of those moves that you can spam whenever you want, but you're not getting things out of it if you do that. And then when he disappears, you'll see a bunch of sparkles fly off, so it's really, really nice. And hopefully we get to see this game for the PC, because honestly, even on the console, if it looks this good, imagine this game on the PC with textures like that. Wow. One of the things that everyone will notice about the game is that yes, this game does have a day and night cycle, and as the sun is setting, the players will take out their flashlight. You'll see the lighting at night, which is really interesting, and the harder enemies come out. It's very nice to have a dynamic day and night cycle in the game. Not only that, but there's also changing weather. You don't get to see any rain in the demo, but there is a windy weather in the game during one of the days where you see the trees and the bushes sway a bit. So dynamic weather, check. It's in the game, it looks nice, it adds to the immersion. One of the things I deem the most important in video games is immersion. And when it comes to dynamic day and night cycle, the most important thing to me is when you're in the middle of a wilderness or out in the open like this where there isn't many man-made lights, etc. How is the skybox in the game? So I waited till nighttime and I looked in the sky and I waited and to see if there's clouds, moon, stars, whatever. And as nighttime approaches, lo and behold, I shed tears, man, because I'm not kidding you, the sky is absolutely phenomenal in this game. Stars, galaxies, clouds flying by. It's really, really well done. If you're gonna do a game like this, you gotta do justice to the skybox. I know a lot of you guys are laughing out there, it's just the skybox, man, calm down. You don't understand. You see this kind of stuff in real life, it's mesmerizing. So in the game, it really adds a lot of immersion, and it's really important to get the skybox right, and well done to the developers of the game. I really, really give them props for that, because to me, that, like I said, that's really important to me personally. So I don't know if many of you guys find it important, but if you do, go ahead and comment on the bottom, because you absolutely have to have breathtaking skies in video games like this. Now, the combat of the game is quite easy to understand once you get a handle on it. It reminded me a little bit of Kingdom Hearts, and at the same time, Final Fantasy Type 0, but it's a completely different gameplay altogether. Now, some of the things you've been hearing about people, and I've heard it too, is people were asking me, oh, is it like a spam type of combat where you just keep pressing one button to attack? Or I've had another person go, oh, it's just hold square to attack. You don't just hold square to attack, because if you hold square to attack, you're playing like a noob. The Square holding to attack is for doing continuous combos when you get your enemies in the stun lock, and in this case, most of the enemies are really easy in this demo. They don't really block or do anything different. They run around, and once you get them combo locked, you just hold square down, of course. But once you get into the main game, I can see this system getting more complex where the enemies will start blocking, where they don't stumble, and you're going to have a lot of problems with them. That's why parrying and dodging is really important. And when you're holding square down or you're constantly spamming square, you can't block unless you hold L1 down. Now when you hold L1 down, what happens is you'll be able to dodge your enemy's attack and also parry them. There's a little symbol that appears on the enemies when they try to do a large attack on you, and you gotta parry it. There's a little symbol that pops up, and then you can press the square button to react against it, so you can do massive damage against them. But it's really important. I can see the system being really important in the game later on. Now, aside from the dodging and the parrying in the game and also the attacking, there's also the special moves in the game that you can easily change with the little D-pad. The special moves in the game are quite interesting. They have their own charge up times, and also if you miss them, you'll get countered. But basically, like thrusting, if you're about to execute the moves, enemies can still counter you with a hit and knock you out of the move completely. Or if you miss a Dragoon jump, the enemies will knock you down easily. Noctis also has another ability to warp in and warp out at enemies, which is really useful for strategies such as catching up to enemies and also to warp away from battles if things get bad. Now aside from that, the warping out, warping in, the parry, the dodges, everything depends on MP except for the attack. Like special moves depend on MP, you're warping in, warping out, and also you're dodging and parrying. If you don't have any of that and you go into stasis mode, when their MP reaches 0, you'll be left defenseless. So that's why you gotta build it up. You build it up by attacking your enemies, you build it up by ducking behind big rocks or just crouching behind objects, and you build it up by warping on top of towers. I don't think it'll be only towers, but later on maybe more stuff you can warp on top of it, but you can warp on top of towers, stand there for a little bit, and you'll start regenerating MP faster. And also when you're in a bind and you're full of MP, you can actually go into a certain overdrive mode and basically warp around real quick with Noctis and do massive damage on the enemies to strike them down so you can get out of tough situations. Another thing you'll notice is there's a few weapons on Noctis. Each of them has certain abilities and have their own stats or what they do. Like one weapon would sweep enemies down, one weapon would drain them. So there's going to be a lot of weapons coming out later on in the full version of the game. And it's really interesting how you can mix and match the weapons for really strategic play. So it's a really easy system to understand, and also has room to be really complex later on in the game once you start changing out weapons and start using weapons with elemental differences. I can see a lot of strategy going into the weapons. Aside from that, the interface in the game is really clean, and items in the game are really interesting how they work in the system. The items drop from enemies, or you find it on the ground. The items are used to sell to NPCs to make money, so therefore enemies will not be dropping gil, I guess. I don't know what's going to happen, but I like the concept like that because it adds realism to that. You have to hunt the enemies, gather parts from them, and sell it to make money. I like that aspect when it comes to making money instead of just being rewarded from battles. As for healing items and items that benefit the players, they are available in the game. You can buy them from the NPCs, and you can use them during battles. Take a little bit of time to kick in. The reason being, when my HP go down to 0, what happens is, you have to walk around. Hopefully your companion will help get you back on your feet, but if in case they don't, you go into red damage and your bar starts depleting slowly. And whatever's left, when they get you up, is going to be your permanent stats until you go to camp and sleep. Camping and sleeping in this game is quite interesting. You go to bed, it's in predetermined places to create the camp, but once you create the camp, the characters are able to level up, gain new skills apparently from what I see, because the demo doesn't let you see the new skills yet. So there's a button on the bottom that says skills, but you level up from that and you pretty much get buffs from the food you eat that night also, which really helps the players out when it comes to attacking enemies such as goblins. In one part of the game where I had immunity against their poison, which is nice because when I went into the cave there's just a crap load of them. So, and you'll also notice that it's probably safer to go to sleep at night, because at night goblins come out, Imperial Magitech troops drops in by like a handful, and then you have Sabre Tusk all over the place. It's completely chaotic at night, so Nighttime, it's fun to walk around and run around at night, but it's also quite dangerous. I think most of it has something to do with your level. The higher the level you are, the more enemies you encounter. Other things I want to mention about the game is the soundtrack to the game is phenomenal. It brings back memories of Final Fantasy. There's a lot of really, really nice tunes in this game. Epic music, especially the behemoth fight, and then there's like this nice battle music when you're fighting the goblins. Oh, and one thing I want to mention is that there is towns in this game. There are NPCs. There's also a chocobo area where you can rent chocobos, apparently. It seems like you can drive in this game also from the menu I'm looking at, and also change your group equipment, so possible control of other characters in full game, who knows. Not only that, but the NPCs in the game apparently is going to be voiced over, because I did find some NPCs at stations where they were having conversations, and then I went to camp, came back the next day, and they started having another conversation. So the conversations and the NPCs change out. I don't know how they change out, but I noticed that by camping, they switch out the NPCs. Don't know if they switch out during certain events also. That is pretty much all my impression about the game that I've seen so far about the game, so I'm really looking forward to this game, guys. This is saying a lot for me, but I haven't really enjoyed many RPG demos since Final Fantasy VII, especially when it comes to JRPGs. You know, I got really tired of them, and they got really old and boring for me, but that's just my preference. The thing about this demo is it's really interesting, it's fresh, it's coming from Japan. They finally learned a lot of things, and they're improving on what happened with Final Fantasy XIII, and they're making it much better. So I have a lot of faith in this game being better, so there's a lot more to come in the game. So once the full thing comes out, I'll do a definite review on it. But for now, from what I've seen so far, I'm pretty much impressed. It could be delayed, who knows, because this game was delayed already due to Final Fantasy XIV fiasco that happened, so they had to remake that game. But hopefully we'll see this game next year, and that it'll be amazing. Anyways, that's it for my impression of the game. I hope you guys liked it. Remember to subscribe, check out the playthrough videos and summon videos I posted about the game. I will definitely show you more in the future, but this is all I got for now, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and remember to game on.